Okay, YouTubers, a real quick game of interplanetary I Spy going on here, back to Mars, back to Gale Crater, and we are looking at this image taken by the Curiosity rover in 2012. Links will be below in the description. Let's get on with it. Let's have a look at it. Here we are. Now we have this, what initially looks just like a rock, like a lot of these things do, but when you look a bit closer, you will find something rather interesting. And this is what I'm going to show you now. Now this just looks like a rock initially, but when you go in close, you'll see it's kind of melted. Now this may be metal of some sort, some kind of alloy or some kind of bronze or something similar. Now, just because it's the same color as everything else doesn't mean it's rock. These images do have an orange color filter on them, so the images are not RGB, i.e. red, green and blue. They are RGBO, so they're red, green, blue, orange. And the orange, what the orange does, it hides any green that grows on these rocks. Like there is moss growing on some of these rocks. The orange filter covers that up, and it makes everything look the same sort of color. So the colors aren't much to go by here, but if you zoom into this, you can see that there's a figurine just here. I'm just going to point it out, and here it is. Now I'm calling this the Queen figurine. Why am I calling it that? Because that's what I think it is. Now, I've found over 100 figurines and statues in this area in the last few years. In fact, since 2013, when I started my channel. And this is a really nice one because this shows a female. Why do I think this is a female? Well, if you look at the details on here, let me get in a bit closer for you. Here we are. You can see a long, slender body coming down like this. You've got long, slender legs. There's a leg there, and there's another one here. We have a missing arm here, but you can just about make out where the arm was here. You have part of the arm here, which is broken into pieces. You've got two pieces here. And we have breasts here. Okay. We have a head coming round with a chin. You can just about make out some facial detail, and we have a headdress coming up like this with what seem to be feathers or something, representing feathers or something similar, and it kind of comes around like that. It's a big headdress. Now, it's a bit hard to make out, this thing, because it's quite small and slender. I would say it's probably only about 5 or 6 inches long, but probably less, but more like 4 inches from here to here. So it's not very large, but many of the figurines that I've found are very small, and they're only a few inches in size. There are animals, there are people, there are all sorts of strange creatures and objects as well. And these are, I think a lot of them are burial figurines. This particular thing may have been part of some kind of altarpiece or something like that in a burial site or some kind of funerary art. And there may have been, there seems to be lots of other things kind of melted together here. So these things may have been all together. And when the cataclysm hit, there was probably a tsunami which swept down into Gale Crater, which is 3 miles down below the surface. The water from the surface would have gone over the edge into the crater and washed a lot of things into it. This water then evaporated when the atmosphere was largely destroyed, and a lot of these things may have melted as well in the process, or just been covered in clay and mud, which is then dried out and then eroded with wind erosion over time, probably over millions of years. So this may have been buried for a long time under mud and sand, and it's kind of eroded away, showing the statuettes and figurines inside the clay being revealed by the erosion, perhaps. Okay, I mean, there's a number of scenarios that could have caused this, and if you look at it carefully, let's look at this image a bit more closely. We have some interesting things here, up here, sticking out. You've got this thing sticking out here. Let's make that a bit smaller. There we are. Yeah, we've got this kind of block thing sticking out there, and it's all joined to this part here. We've got the figurine here. You can see the head just there. Excuse my rather crude drawing here. And we've got some other very interesting shapes and stuff in here, but it's all kind of melted and moulded together in clay and eroded away, probably from wind erosion. I don't really see what else it can be, because the thing is, you could say that this is just random, but I don't think it is, because what you have is you have a head with a headdress. Now, the head and headdress I spotted straight away in the raw image like we have here. And then I looked down and I thought, wow, it's got a body, a curved body that kind of comes round like this, and the leg comes right down to here, and the other side of the body it curves like that, and you've got the hips and the thigh and the leg, it comes in where the knee would be. You've got the shin down here, you've got the inside of the leg there, you've got the other part of that leg. We have the crotch area, we have breasts here that come up like that, okay. This arm is missing, so it kind of goes to there and it's kind of broken off, just there. You've got the neck coming up here, quite a long neck. The head is looking upwards. Now, this to me looks like a warrior queen or a tribal queen, or some kind of tribal leader or witch doctor or something like that. Maybe a fertility symbol, being a naked female, human, right? And when you go in close, now I've sharpened this. When you sharpen it, I've enlarged it and sharpened it and then colour filtered it. When you sharpen it, the eyes pop out, and there's a nose just there. There's a mouth that is quite vague. Let's do that again. The mouth kind of comes around like that. And you can even see, if you look really closely, you can see two eyes here. Like that, right? These details are in the image. I haven't put them in there. All I've done is add contrast and I've sharpened it, right? This arm here is broken. You can see where it's broken there. Now, this is common with statues and figurines on Earth. A lot of the statues and figurines that were found in Egypt and places like that were broken. Some are in very good shape, but a lot of them have been smashed to pieces in the cataclysm, very similar to what we see on Mars. And there are huge fragments of them all over the place. And some of them were absolutely enormous. They were like 50, 80 feet tall. You know, this is small. I would say this is only 3 or 4 inches. It could be a little bigger. It could even be a little smaller. Don't know exactly. But in my experience, judging by the distance from the bottom of the image, this is probably only about 4 inches. And we have, the headdress comes around like this. You can see it coming right round. It comes round to here like this. There's these fanned parts coming out, either representing feathers or something similar. A bit kind of, there's a join there and there's a bit coming up there. Now obviously this is heavily eroded and damaged. You can see the edges of them here, coming up to here. And it kind of comes right out like that, and there's a bit there. So this comes right out. You can see the edge of the face here and the chin coming under. All right. So that's kind of what I'm seeing. Now you can actually see, if I take all those lines away, let's take them all away, you can actually see what I'm doing there. Just getting rid of each one individually. Now I pointed them out, you can see those features. But of course, if you get too close to it, it doesn't get any sharper. Let's go in the middle of the page here so you can focus on it. There's the thing there. Now you can see it pretty clearly when it's small like that, because that's basically what it is. It is small. When you go in too close, it gets too blurred because there's not a great deal of high focus and sharpness in the image. A lot of these images taken by the rover are done in a sort of general focus that doesn't really focus sharply on anything. Everything's slightly out of focus, so everything's slightly soft looking. And the way to get around that, of course, is to not zoom in too far and add contrast to make the shadows stand out. You can see the legs coming down here. Unfortunately, now I imagine this arm would have come down to the side here. In fact, this may actually be just buried and encrusted. You can see what looks like a thumb here and a hand just there. So what we may be seeing is obfuscation or just poor image quality hiding the detail. But it does seem to be a hand here. You can just about make out Let's try and keep that in the middle there. You can just about make out this here, like a thumb and a hand, just there. And yeah, and you can see the edge, the figurine, there's the crutch. You can see the breast here, and the other one here. Now, this is small, so you're not going to see a great deal of detail. But, I mean, this is not much bigger than or probably even smaller than a Barbie doll, I would say. So this may actually be a doll that's become encrusted in clay and sediment and hardened into a kind of clay figure. It's hard to say exactly. This would have to be examined. This would have to be examined very closely. But there are many things like this found in the area. This is by no means a one-off. What does make this different is that this is a female figurine and not a male or a warrior like a lot of them are. Although some of them look like female warriors. There have been lots of animals and things like sphinxes that I found in the area. In fact, there's a giant sphinx I found years ago, which is about 225 feet long, possibly bigger. I'll put some clips of these things in at the end for you to see. If you haven't come to this channel before and you think I'm just talking a load of rubbish here, look at the other things I've found before you come out with all the rude and ridiculous comments, because I have found over 100 statues and figurines in this area, okay? So take a look at least a few of those before making accusations and rude comments, okay? So there we are. What else can I say about it? It's quite amazing. When I showed my wife this, she was amazed and saw it immediately. Even in the raw clip there, you can see those parts sticking out. You can see those kind of feathery parts sticking out of the headdress quite clearly. Yes, it's a bit vague. Yes, it looks like it's moulded together with all this, but why wouldn't it? Lots of these things are. As I've said before, the sand in Gale Crater and the mud, the earth is very sticky because it's got a very high sulfur content, so it sticks to everything. So this may be just sand and mud that's stuck to it and then just dried out. It forms like a concrete very, very easily under only a certain amount of pressure. So in other words, if this was buried in sand, it would have squashed the mud together and then it would have dried out and formed this kind of what looks like molten metal kind of look. So there we are. Okay, so there we are. There it is. You can, when you zoom in, you can even see eyes and a nose and a mouth. It's very vague, but it is there. And it's another amazing sculpture on the surface of planet Mars. And as I've said before, when looking at images of other planets, an open mind is required because one day our very survival may depend on it. Thanks for watching. See you soon.